Well, good morning, folks. It's the next morning, and as you remember, we finished those fillets last night, and we're going to check them out, see if they hardened well, and we're going to go ahead and put a couple of layers down of the glass. I think what I'm going to really focus on today is on the top side of the box. I want to go over those edges and down around those filleted edges. What I'm initially going to do is just do a layer of chop strand mat right there, and then later I'll come in and do the flat sides. But I want to get that radius over the whole thing first, just because it's going to be the trickiest part to do. Yeah, there's my disaster from yesterday, if you'll recall. Every once in a while, you can get these to pop right out. And there you go. Today's no exception. So the other day in the store, I saw somebody had taken a rubber glove and filled it with either polyester resin or epoxy resin. Basically peeled the glove off. It was essentially a hand, a big epoxy hand, but you can see just how solid this is. That's like a brick. I mentioned yesterday the polyester resin I bought had no wax in it, and what that's referred to sometimes as a layup resin, and essentially it stays a little tacky. It's not tacky like it's sticking to my finger, but it feels a little bit soft, as opposed to, you know, if you go put your hand on a new fiberglass part or something like that, it feels very hardened. That's because it has wax in it. And what the wax basically does is it seals and keeps the air away from it and lets it cure completely. So I'll do that on my final coat, which I'm going to do is gel coat, which is, you know, essentially a two-part resin as well. It's got hardener in it as well. So I am now ready to check out the inside of this. I'm going to see if I can just break some of this off of here. I keep reusing these same stir sticks, and they work pretty well over and over. You see, you can kind of peel it right off of there. It's just a good stir stick to keep using. And it's mainly because I have a whole bag full of popsicle sticks for mixing this, and I continue to forget them on the boat when I come over here and do work. So I only have a couple of these things over here. I alternate back and forth between reusing the darn things. And if you bend these a little bit, it kind of peels off the edge here. You can usually peel this whole inner material out in one shot. Normally I buy these things by the dozen as well on Amazon. When I do the blog post, I'll put a link down to them. Again, I left the darn sleeve of them over on the boat, so I'm just clearing this one out to reuse it. Normally I wouldn't bother. All right, so we have the box up on its side here, and again, you can see the fillets and what they look like. It's just a matter of getting these a little bit smoothed out. You know, I mentioned this yesterday, it doesn't need to be completely pretty. What I'm just looking for is not trying to go around a 90-degree edge. You know, that's what I'm gonna end up doing up here. It's gonna be a little bit challenging, but I don't want to round this because I do truly want what's going to be my lid, essentially. I want that nice and flat and solid. So I'm going to be taking my my chop strand and basically draping it like this from, like, I'll take a piece about this wide, drape it down the side a little bit, over this edge, down around my radius, and down 2 or so inches down in here, maybe 3. What that's going to allow me to do is later come back and put a whole sheet right over this section here. It'll bond the two sections together, and it won't be so hard where I'm trying to take one sheet and get it to bend around all of this, right? It's really about getting this top part sealed in and then moving on to the next. Having lunch with Deb's parents, so I want to get this done real quick before we head over. But because it's fiberglass, we will use a mask. So in hindsight, I probably should have used my router and rounded these over. I'm doing it right now with the sander, which is fine. It just would have been faster had I done that last night, but I was racing against daylight, as you saw. Well, I'll tell you, the funny thing is you can really tell where I started and where I finished last night. And I say that mainly because it gets much neater as I go. I'm glad I started on the inside where nobody will see it from outside the boat. It'll just be a constant reminder for me of practice, practice, practice every time I get something out of there. All right, so it's time to start getting ready to lay this up. I'm going to get some gloves. These are the nitrile 5 mil thick gloves. And I gotta tell you, I bought them, I just get these at Harbor Freight because I buy a lot of them, but if you're going to do this and you're doing fiberglass work, I would encourage you to spend a little bit of extra money on the 7 mil. These work, and I've yet to have them rip, but for some reason the 7s just feel a little bit better and they go up a little higher on your arm. So when you're working with epoxy or something like that, it's nice to have that. Now I don't have a Tyvek suit. What I do have, however, is my wood turner's jacket. I'm gonna grab that. So when I do work on the lathe, this is kind of nice. It has a Velcroed collar and Velcro sleeves. You can see I bought this thing when I was a little bit bigger, but it certainly works for what I need here. And the idea is, last night I got home and I sat down and I had all these little fibers on these shirts, so I went up on deck and took off the shirt and shorts and just hung them out there on the rail. And then this morning, just grabbed the same ones and put them back on. I didn't want to give any more on me. Yeah, this Velcro's almost doesn't even grab. It's I need a new one of these things. Fits me a little better. But when you're doing wood turning, this thing's great because these will keep the sawdust from going down your face, especially when on a lathe, you know, it's all shooting at you. So, there we go. So here's my chop strand. I'm going to work this stuff a little bit carefully, just because I don't want to get these fibers everywhere. It's already some starting to come up already. The best thing about chop strand mat is, rather than cut it, you really want to tear it. And by tearing it, what it does is it allows all these little rough edges to blend into the next piece. So I'm going to just take this at about my amount I need here, and I'm going to start to tear it. Now, it's fairly easy to tear. You just have to watch you don't start going in a really crazy direction. But what I find is easiest, you kind of hold your hand here and slowly pull, and then pull in the direction you need it to go a little bit. Now they sell strips of this too, so I could have just bought, 3-inch or 4-inch wide strips. And it's for tabbing and whatnot when you're doing that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of dry tear these so we get them in the spots we need. Since it's already tore right here, I think I'm going to use this section right here on the side. And again, I'm going to take this and fold it right over. That's my goal here. Before I do that, just want to see how well that's going to go in there. It's going to be good. And again, tearing it gives me those fibers, and I want that. That's definitely part of what I'm looking for here. All right, and we've got this side here. So as you probably recall from yesterday, we had some mixing issues when we first started. So I'm going to start with a pretty small batch here. I'm just going to go with 4 ounces. Open up our lid and pour in our catalyst. Mix this up thoroughly. Now it's just a matter of doing a little bit of brushing here. I want to get a thin coat right on here and let it start to harden. I don't want to go too thick down here, just beyond where I'm going to be applying the material. And this isn't the kind of thing like you're painting you want to go really, really thin with. You don't want it running down it, but it's okay to be a little bit liberal here. I want this whole surface in there good and tacky, and I'm going to come around and do this same thing over here as well, because this is the side I'll do next. May as well let it start getting adhered a little bit. And the reason you want it wet down below is you want something for the chop strand to start to stick to, and then we'll saturate it with the resin after it's on there, the mat's on there. Start on this side over here, and again, I only want to go a little bit over this edge, so I'm going to start just about like this, and I'm going to hold it in place. What I'm really trying to do is just, see, I probably could have that a little damper right there. To allow it to stick a little bit better. There we go. And I'm going to come in here and wet this down completely, but I just want to get it started. It takes some working. You're going to require some pushing this stuff in here for sure. Now, when you have it thoroughly soaked, what you'll notice is it starts to turn clear. No longer looks white, and that's how you know you've got it saturated at the right consistency. I like to dab. It seems to work a little bit better. If you try and brush it, you'll end up with these little splinters everywhere. And the other nice thing is it kind of helps take some of the air out as you do that as well. So the rule of thumb is you want to use as much, the weight of the cloth and the weight of the resin should be about the same. So for example, if this is 2 ounces of cloth right here, I don't know what it is, but if it's 2 ounces of cloth, then I want to use 2 ounces of resin by weight, not by volume. That's important to note. You're not measuring this like a recipe, it's by weight. Get it good and saturated, and then I'm going to use my hands and fin roller to push this all down in place. Speaking of fin roller, have all your tools ready to go before you start. I just realized I think my fin roller's in the car. Dang it. Now the purpose of the fin roller is to remove air. You're not trying to spread the material like you would a paint roller. Notice I'm just gently going downward with it. That's all I want to do. You can see this air right there? We're gonna have to work that out with the fin roller. This is where it's a little bit not saturated enough, and it was starting to kick just a tad. So we're gonna push that down in there in a minute here. The good news is we have this top piece done. Now we'll be able to go on the flatter sides next. So we're gonna let this dry. We'll come back a little later today. Gonna go over and have a nice 4th of July luncheon with Deb's parents. And when we come back, we'll see how well this is dry and maybe put another coat on a little later today.
We have our box here, but it's been a couple of different days. I've come in and did a few layers on it. You know, I think you recall the video I showed where I just did a layer over the top of this. I have now put a layer down on the bottom. Let me turn this sideways here. I have this entire front side, the flat side, already done. And today I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing in these corners. I'm going to lay the chop strand over these beams and corners, and I'll get that done today. This is polyester resin, not epoxy resin. And I'm using 8 ounces of it with 2 cc's of MEKP. And I'm just mixing it up for about 45 to 60 seconds. Got it wet down below. I'll lay these two. You notice I'm working my way toward the outside edge. Just remove any air bubbles.
Cheese. Not you.
Cheese.
Now I'm doing all the application here of the polyester resin into the chop strand mat with an actual chip brush, and you're seeing me do it this way. You can also do this with a roller. So they sell sort of foam rollers, like a paint roller, but it's a more dense foam, and you can certainly use those as well. I just did want to zoom in here a little bit so you can get a good view of what this looks like, and I just used the brush to move the heavier parts of the fiberglass around, and then I stipple it down like this. It's doing a couple things. One, it's getting the air bubbles out from underneath it, and it's fully saturating. You can see how it turns completely transparent when that's the case. Again, you can certainly use a roller, and here's a great tip for making sure you clean your fin roller well. I did some of this fiberglass earlier in this day, and I did not soak this in acetone, and you can see what it's doing. It's sticky, so it's pulling up all those loose fibers. It's at least good enough to roll the edges over. You can kind of see it's starting to roll them over the edge, and then I'll just have to use the actual brush and stipple it down again to really get these completely saturated. But this is what happens when you don't clean your fin roller between every use. I'm editing the video now, but I'll tell you, I had to soak this thing for about an hour and a half in acetone to get it clean. So for video purposes, I'm going to fast forward. This is what it looks like after we have 2 layers of glass over the entire box. It looks fairly good here. It's not completely smooth, and because this is a laminating resin, it's still a little bit tacky. I'm also showing the bottom of the box where we actually mounted those legs into it. Again, they're there to allow for it to sit level.
It's got the widened edge. This is where I did the 1x2 along the edge, but down inside you can certainly see it is just 1/4 inch plywood, and then I did a filleted edge here and a filleted edge on the other, and I laid the glass right over the whole thing to make it seamless. You can see I ground the top a little bit. I did not do a great job of smoothing out those edges. So let me get myself out of the shadow there. You can kind of see along this upper edge, I used the grinder on it. I didn't do a great job of smoothing that out real well as I laid the cloth down on there. I'm not sure if I should have used finishing cloth, but it's a good lesson learned either way. I don't know how well you can see this. I'm going to try and get where the sun's shining toward us just to see if you can see it. I think it's about going to be the perfect texture for the deck itself. So this is part of my testing here, is to see how well this would work when I go to lay this down on the deck. And I'm debating on whether or not I actually fair this thing completely. I'm starting to think maybe I won't. An overall view here of what the entire thing looks like. I mentioned that it's a bit of an odd shape. I have a flat front at 27 inches long, 2 sides that are 14 inches with a 90-degree from that forward side to your left or top of the screen. And then toward the back of the screen, this is taking the same contour as the coach house. So it's going to hinge actually forward. So this is exactly the way it would be sitting. The bow would be to the top of the screen. The coach house would be toward the bottom right of the screen. And the hinge will be toward the bow side. So it'll lift up and then hinge right back down on top of this. So it's a little interesting because it's a bit tacky. I probably shouldn't have bothered sanding it yet, but I did. So I see a few spots that I want to sort of fix a little bit here with some thickened resin. See a little spot right here where I got almost down to the wood when I ground. A little bit right on these corners where the glass, the mat, didn't adhere really well right to it. It's close, but not quite. And when I ground it, I ground little openings in it. So I'll fix that. You can see over here where it did go all the way over. It's a bit thick. It almost comes out and then goes back in, or like this, and then goes back in. So it's okay for my lid. It doesn't have to be perfect. And when the lid's closed on it, it's going to come down around, you know, an inch down on it or so. So it'll hide all that, but I want it to look decent. As I do this, you know, like I said, I've said a bunch of times, this is an overall test just to see how material works and how it's going to look and feel and what it would be like to step on with bare feet, all that good stuff.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching, and please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or even Tumblr. Please take a moment and go over to our website at svdreamchaser.com to download free resources for cruising and how-to projects. Get your thumbs and mouses ready. We also have a couple of links right on the screen for some other playlists and videos that we think you'll enjoy. Thanks for watching, fellow dreamers.